Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Talk about all the LSU recruiting news. We bring in Sam Spiegelman, who's a national recruiting analyst for Rivals at Sam Spiegs, where you can find him on Twitter, and he's now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sam, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. Derek Meadows decides to pledge to LSU. A lot of LSU's work is done down here in the Southeast, Texas, Florida, and certainly in Louisiana. They go out west for this one. What can you tell us about Derek Meadows?
Yeah, 6'5", 200 pounds. Incredible times running track, multi-sport standout over there at Bishop Gorman, one of the best high school football programs in the country. And I think Derek Meadows, the guy that with all this physical skill, size, speed, ability to jump out the gym. He's someone that what LSU's receiver room looks like. Can come into LSU, kind of develop and take his time. And Cortez Hankton has worked with big receivers like Meadows before. George Pickens comes to mind at Georgia. And I think that's an area LSU would love to have just another big guy. They have Shelton Sampson waiting in the wings, and then you can add someone like Derek Meadows right behind him to groom and stick out there on the perimeter.
What's Cortez Hankton's reputation like on the recruiting trail?
Oh, I think his reputation speaks for itself. He, obviously in the state of Louisiana, he's beloved. He was beloved at Vanderbilt. He was beloved at Georgia. And he really kind of jump-started Georgia's ability to recruit the state a couple of years back. But now that he's been back in Louisiana, has a national championship ring from his time in Athens, I feel like he's been recruiting the state with pretty seamlessly. And his reputation, the LSU's in the mix for some of the best receivers year in and year out, depending on the cycle. I mean, whether it's Texas, whether it's Florida, you're seeing him recruit the state of Georgia, out in Las Vegas right there with Derek Meadows. His reputation speaks for itself. Obviously, what he just did with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas going to the draft, what the future looks like with Chris Hilton and Kyron Lacey. I mean, LSU has a great reputation, and with Coach Hankton manning the ship, also being the co-offensive coordinator this year, I mean, I don't know how many, besides Brian Hartline and, Coach Shepard over there at Alabama, I don't know how many receivers coaches have a resume quite like Coach Hankton.
How much does Bryce Underwood factor into this when you start talking about wide receivers that want to come play here?
I mean, how do you not say that the number one quarterback in the country is committed and, they're trying to stock up on weapons around him? I think it's always a sell when you have a player like Bryce Underwood. And Bryce if he's not the best quarterback in the country, he's certainly right in the thick of the conversation. I think players around the country are going to gravitate to LSU, and not only this class, but next year as well. In the 2026 group, they're going to want to be attracted to this. We saw this a couple of years ago with Texas and Arch Manning. Not only were schools, players inside of the state of Texas or Louisiana and Oklahoma interested in going to Texas, but you had kids out in Georgia and Florida and California saying, no, we want to play with this QB1. And Bryce Underwood has those same sort of elite athletic traits, a reputation that's known not only in Louisiana or Michigan, but around the country. And skill players, offensive linemen, also going to want to play with an elite quarterback that they know can put them in a spot to compete for playoff spots.
Chatting with Sam Spiegelman, national recruiting analyst for Rivals. Was a busy weekend for LSU with announcements, both good and not as good. Derek Meadows certainly on the good side, four-star wide receiver from out there in Vegas. Jaboree Antoine from right down the road in New Iberia pledges to Miami. He had been committed to LSU, backed off of that, was looking at Miami, potentially Florida State, and ends up pledging to the Hurricanes. What were your thoughts when you saw that announcement this weekend?
Not super surprising. Obviously, he decommitted from LSU after taking OVs to FSU in Miami, and he's been to Miami a couple of times in the past year. He was there in January. He took it to spring practice, took an OV there. He's coming down to the wire. Miami was trending, but LSU made this a lot more interesting than maybe we would have thought 2 weeks ago. I think that LSU for a moment thought that they might be able to get Jaboree back on board. I was told that getting DJ Pickett a few days earlier really just it made him think a little bit harder about LSU being a choice for July 20th. I know that people in his party, his camp rather, were considering maybe even pushing his decision back as he was so torn. But it's a big win for Miami. I don't think LSU is going to be out of this recruitment just yet. I think he was really, as he talked about it publicly, and you heard it behind the scenes, how torn he was between LSU and Miami. And listen, Corey Raymond is from New Iberia, Louisiana. It's an hour away. We've seen kids commit out of state like this before. And if he was so torn, I don't think the LSU staff is going to stop recruiting him to come on to Tiger Stadium in October or November, which might give him just another consideration before he puts pen to paper. He also has not taken his OV to LSU. You know that the Tigers try to get their in-state commits and targets on campus in December. That might come into play with Jaboree as well.
LSU has a lot of battles with Texas A&M, a lot of battles with Alabama. That's pretty common. Miami's not one that comes up a lot in our neck of the woods. I'm curious your thoughts as someone who sees this nationally. What is Miami's football program situation like? What is their sell right now? It's one that I think for me is kind of hard to put my finger on.
Well, I definitely understand. They've had some success in the past coming in the last couple of years. Trevante Citizen from Lake Charles signed there. You had the kid from Southern Lab, Dylan Day, the safety, signed there last year. Dennis Smith, who worked a long time at Louisiana Tech, is on that coaching staff, and he's very close with Coach Cristobal. And obviously, Coach Cristobal is a fantastic head coach and a fantastic recruiter. And in Jaboree's case, Chivas Jackson, their young DB coach, has some NFL experience. Has coached just youthful coach that kind of can relate to these teenage kids making these decisions. And there's also the NIL factor. Miami can also afford to make a move in that department. And with all those factors, plus they have that in with Coach Smith being a Louisiana guy, they've got into a few recruitments here and there, but not nearly the extent of a Texas or an A&M or a Bama, for instance.
We'll see. I don't think anybody thinks this Jaboree Antoine recruitment is over. We'll have to see how that thing shakes out on signing day here in a few months. I did want to get your thoughts before we let you go. Sam, we appreciate some time here on this Monday. On Jakeem Stewart, I think a lot of eyes on him. St. Aug prospect right here in Louisiana. 3 of the big 4 recruiting services, including Rivals, have him as the number 1 player in the country. Kind of your thoughts early on in that recruitment.
I think he already has a lead group of 4 schools, LSU being one of them, along with USC, Ohio State, and Oregon. But there's some buzz that he might take a visit to Miami. He might take a visit to Auburn. Those are 2 schools, connected pretty well with the NIL department. The big thing with Jakeem, there's a very good chance that he reclassifies in the next coming months. And obviously, he's gearing up for his junior season. If it's his senior season, we already kind of know the schools that are largely, connected to this kid. He's been to Oregon, USC, Ohio State, and LSU 8 times total in the past couple of months. That, getting out west is usually a pretty tall task for kids in Louisiana, but he's been out there multiple times checking out these programs that are desperately recruiting him, and they're recruiting him like he is a senior going into his senior season. I think right now it's fair to say that Ohio State, Oregon have a lot of buzz, but USC's first-year defensive line coach, Eric Henderson, comes from Ed Dakar. He's a New Orleans guy, and I think that really matters to your team. And, who else is a New Orleans guy is Frank Wilson.
Yeah.
And Bo Davis has a way to move the needle with guys in the state of Louisiana. So it's just a very interesting recruitment. You have someone that could be reclassifying. You have someone who has 4 schools very much neck and neck recruiting him. And this might start just kind of coming together very quickly that he has a decision possibly November, December, if he has to reclassify and sign, because he's the kind of kid that these college coaches are going to push to get him on campus right away. I've heard college coaches in the SEC call him a generational type of talent, and haven't seen guys with this kind of size and athletic traits, moving like this and that they've ever seen. And they've been coaching for way longer than I've been in this business. So, it's a really interesting recruitment. He's a fantastic kid. He's a fantastic talent. Me from just a pure, curiosity standpoint, I'm just curious to see how he looks going into his junior season. He had such a great offseason, in all these camps. He always kind of cleans up in these camps. but you really just love to see it on tape, just see him dominate. And he plays in the Catholic League. He's got Robert Valdez is now the head coach of St. Aug. You know that he's had success for grooming guys like Savion Smith in the past at St. James. I'm just really curious to see what he looks like in the Catholic League going against some of the best in New Orleans week in and week out.
We know that the early enrollee, kind of was in vogue there early, and now it's kind of commonplace to enroll mid-semester your senior year. Do you think there's going to be a time where early class, like reclassifying and going a year early, is going to be something that a lot of kids look into doing?
I think we're seeing it more and more. It used to be a big surprise when it happened. You'd see it maybe a curveball, every other year, every 2 years. But then you saw it with Quinn Ewers a couple of years ago. You saw it with Julian Lewis, who's, one of the best in the country, committed to USC right now. And we've heard the rumors about Jakeem doing it since the spring. So it almost feels like it's inevitable once they can get all the details worked out about, getting all the right courses in order. But I'll say this, with NIL being a huge part of recruiting in 2024, it's basically a contract to get these kids in a position to help these teams get on the field and to start getting developed to be ready for that. And it's also about getting onto campus to make additional money off the field with, the autograph sessions and whatever kind of events they have in line for these kids. It makes sense. If you're essentially paying and using NIL as a motive for recruiting, if you want them on campus so they can be put in those positions. And seems like that's kind of coming with the times of reclassifying and getting to school as soon as humanly possible.
He is Sam Spiegelman, national recruiting analyst for Rivals. You can follow him on Twitter at Sam Spieg. Sam, thanks so much for your time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.